When my husband, Oliver, was diagnosed with cancer, everyone around me told me to divorce him and remarry. They said, "Don't waste your youth like this. Your husband is going to die anyway." But I didn't abandon him. I worked tirelessly, cleaning houses to afford his treatment at expensive hospitals. At night, I would stay awake, reading the Bible and weeping, begging God for my husband's life. Oliver would often say to me, "I'm pleased with you, Charlotte. You deserve heaven." After years of struggle, when he finally recovered, I was overjoyed. But the very first thing he did was divorce me and throw me out of the house. My heart felt like it had been crushed. I was shattered. I ended up in a women's shelter. A few days later, Oliver came to explain why he divorced me, and his words shook the ground beneath my feet. That day, I was so happy. I had cooked his favorite meal and worn his favorite dress. I had no idea it would become the most horrific day of my life. As he entered the house, I greeted him with a smile, but his face was filled with anger and coldness. I softly asked, "Is everything okay?" He glared at me with terrifying eyes and sat on the sofa. I rushed to get him a glass of water, but as I handed it to him, he suddenly pushed my hand away and stepped back. In a rage, he shouted, "You're impure. I can no longer have any connection with you. Our relationship ends here." He repeated this over and over, as if denying my very existence. Tears streamed down my face. In an instant, my world collapsed. Trembling, I asked, "Why? What crime am I being punished for?" Instead of answering, he slapped me hard and yelled, "Don't you understand? There's no relationship between us anymore. Get out of this house. There's no place for you here." Sobbing, I said, "What relationship are you freeing me from? What cage was I in? When you were lying in a hospital bed, when everyone else abandoned you, I stayed by your side. I served you, fasted for you, prayed in churches, begged God for your life, felt your pain as my own, and sacrificed my dreams. What was my fault?" Enraged, he shouted, "Stop talking. You're lucky to be alive. Your purity is gone, and there's no place for you here anymore." With that, he grabbed my arm and pushed me toward the door. In that moment, I felt the sacred vows we took, the promises, the wedding necklace, all of it breaking apart. I, who had built this home with my blood and sweat, stood at its threshold as a stranger. I had no clothes, no jewelry, no identity, just a broken heart. The neighbors peeked from their windows and doors, their faces full of curiosity, but not a trace of sympathy. My lips could only utter one plea. Oh God, what was my sin? I felt as if everything had been stolen from me. With tears in my eyes, 1,000 questions in my heart, and unsteady steps, I had no destination, no support, just a faint hope. I reached my parental home, my brother's house, and knocked on the door. My sister-in-law, Mildred, opened it. She looked me up and down, as if my presence was a burden. My face showed grief, my body was covered in dust, and my hands were empty. She asked, "What happened? Why are you in this state?" I could sense her discomfort. I said, "Mildred, I need to talk to my brother." My brother came out, saw my condition, and paused for a moment. In a serious tone, he asked, "Is your marriage over?" I nodded, my eyes wet but my voice silent. He said, "Fine, stay for a few days, but don't let this news spread." His voice lacked the warmth a brother should have. He gave me shelter out of obligation, but soon Mildred's behavior changed. In the mornings, I was given cold, stale leftovers from the previous night. If I ever caught the aroma of fresh tea in the kitchen, Mildred would say, "That's for the kids. You eat what's left." Soon, Oliver sent divorce papers, and our marriage was legally over. One day, when I tried to talk to my niece and nephew and tell them a story, Mildred sternly stopped me. "Charlotte, stay away from my children. I don't want them getting too close to a divorced woman." Her words pierced my heart like a knife. Those were the same children I had rocked in their cradle, whose first teeth I celebrated with sweets. Now, even talking to them felt like a crime. A few days later, Mildred came to my room and said in a harsh tone, "Charlotte, One of my jewelry sets is missing since you came here. You're the only one who's been in my room." I was stunned. "Mildred, you suspect me?" I stammered. "Yes, women like you, helpless and desperate, look for opportunities like this," she replied. "Don't tell your brother, but you can't stay here anymore." My heart broke. I tried to talk to my brother, but he avoided my gaze. "Charlotte, there's an accusation against you. We can't keep you here for long." That night, I packed my clothes in a sheet and quietly left. The city streets were deserted, the moon hidden in the haze. Once again, I was homeless, helpless, and unknown. My feet led me to a place I had seen during my days of service, a shelter. I knocked on the door, and an elderly woman opened it. "Child, why are you here at this hour?" she asked. I burst into tears and could only say, "Mother, is there a small piece of land where I can sit and breathe?" She embraced me and said, "Come, child. This place is for lost souls like you." And so I arrived at a new doorstep, not of humans, but of God. In an orphanage, I was given a room with bare walls, a mat on the floor, an old fan, and a mirror. But that room had a peace I hadn't found even with my loved ones. I bowed my head to the ground and prayed, "Oh God, if my existence is a burden, transform it into your will." My new journey began there, where no one knew my past or present. Only God and I existed. Sitting in front of that old mirror in the orphanage, my own face seemed unfamiliar. Where was the Charlotte who used to laugh, hum songs, and look to her husband's face for every little thing? Now, my face was silent, my heart heavy with sorrow. The night was calm, but a storm raged within me. Memories began knocking loudly, and I let myself drift into the past without resistance. "Your hands have magic, Charlotte," Oliver used to say with a smile. "It's not magic, it's love," I'd reply, blushing. Our marriage was only a few months old, and life felt like a bed of roses. Those small moments, when he came home tired and asked for my tea, then gazed into my eyes while sipping it, made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. But time turned cruel. One day, Oliver fell ill, fever, fatigue, weakness. We thought it was work stress, but when he started fainting repeatedly, fear gripped my heart. It was evening, with cold winds peeking through the windows. The sky seemed steeped in some unknown sorrow. I sat alone in the hospital waiting room, clutching a white envelope with Oliver's test results. My heart pounded, as if it already knew this paper would swallow my peace. The doctor called me aside. His usual gentle demeanor was replaced by an unsettling seriousness. "You need to be strong," he said, placing a hand on mine. "What's wrong with him?" I asked, my voice trembling. He took a deep breath and spoke the words that stopped my world. "Your husband has blood cancer." My eyes went blank. I didn't want to hear or understand anything. The word cancer echoed in my mind. With trembling lips, I asked, "How much time does he have?" The doctor quietly replied, "If treatment doesn't start immediately, very little time is left." My legs felt rooted to the ground. Outside, I leaned against a wall, covered my face with my hands, and wept silently. In that moment, neither my eyes nor my tongue could speak. Only my heart screamed within. When I returned home, Oliver was lying on the sofa, his face pale, his eyes full of questions. "What did the doctor say?" he asked. I forced a smile and said, "Just mild weakness, low iron. They've given medicine. You'll be fine soon." He seemed satisfied. I remembered the time he had laughed and said, "Your lies are so sweet." I looked away, hiding my tears. I couldn't muster the courage to speak the truth. That very night, I first reached out to my husband's siblings. Some turned off their phones. Others said, "You handle it, we're too busy." I knocked on doors, pleaded with tears in my eyes, hands outstretched, but everywhere I got the same response: "Sorry." So I made a decision. I would fight this battle alone. This illness wasn't just in my husband's body. It had seeped into every vein of our lives. But I resolved not to give up. A mother's spirit had awakened in me, one that couldn't bear to see a loved one die, one that would rather perish herself. When the doctor explained the treatment process and costs, my hands trembled. It would take millions, and I didn't even have a few thousand. The little I had wouldn't last long. I started with my jewelry, the gold necklace my mother gave me at my wedding, the small ring Oliver, my husband, gifted me, and other small keepsakes I'd cherished for years. The thought of selling them brought tears to my eyes, but I steeled myself. The jeweler weighed them and quoted a price that broke my heart. These weren't just items, they were my memories. But at that moment, Oliver's life was worth more than memories. Then I opened the secret piggy bank I'd kept for children who never came, though I dreamed of them. I sold old household items, clothes, curtains, extra utensils, everything. I left nothing behind. For a while, I managed to buy medicines, run tests, and make hospital visits. But the money dwindled, and Oliver's condition worsened. I went to every door, but his family acted as if they didn't know me. They said, "How do we know what's true or false? You're always so emotional, exaggerating everything." One day, when Oliver's sister Mildred said, "Cancer?" I don't believe it. I thought to myself, *maybe you'll believe it when his eyes close forever. His reports kept getting worse. I massaged his feet every night while he lay silent, his face a mix of pain and shame, as if he wanted to say, "I've become a burden." I'd reply, "You're not a burden. You're my prayer." But inside, my screams of helplessness grew louder. I asked myself, will my efforts, my sacrifices, my love be enough? Everything felt meaningless. In my hands were the house registry papers. The last thing I had, my mother's final keepsake, where my childhood unfolded, where I played with my toys, slept in her lap, where the walls had absorbed every prayer, tear, and emotion. Today, I was about to sell it with my own hands. To the world, it was just a building. To me, it was an entire universe. And I was giving it up for one reason, to save Oliver's life. The real estate agent looked at the papers, set a price, and finalized the deal. "Are you sure about this decision?" he asked, surprised. I said firmly, "Yes," but inside, my soul was trembling. A battle raged in my heart. On one side, Oliver's worsening condition. On the other, the house, my mother's last memory. But when love becomes worship, sacrifice becomes duty. I took the money, signed the papers, and as I made the final signature, tears flowed freely. In my heart, I begged my mother, "Please don't be angry. Your daughter is only trying to save love." With that money, I immediately started the next phase of treatment, expensive medicines, new tests, hospital admission costs, all paid. For a few days, hope flickered. A bit of color returned to Oliver's face. His voice carried a hint of life. "How did you manage all this, Charlotte?" he asked. I smiled and said, "I just prayed, and God heard me." I lied. I never told him I no longer had a home or shelter, just his life. But as days passed, I feared even this sacrifice might not be enough. His reports worsened again, fever returned, his body grew weaker. When you learn to live for someone, you realize love isn't just words, it's another name for sacrifice. Oliver's breaths began to falter, his frail body racked with pain, his eyes filled with suffering. But I vowed that as long as he was breathing, I'd make every moment of his life peaceful. Day and night lost meaning. I gave up rest, sleep, hunger, everything. I spent days running between hospitals, labs, and pharmacies, and nights awake by his bedside. One night, he was so weak he could barely speak. Suddenly, his body stirred, and the bed got wet. For a moment, I froze, my breath caught. Then I changed his clothes, cleaned the bed, held his hand, and said, "You're my husband. In every condition, I'm your partner. Your weakness, your illness, your helplessness, it's all my pride." He looked at me, silent, shocked, embarrassed, and grateful. Sometimes, when I fed him, he'd cry, "Charlotte, why do you do so much for me?" I'd hold his hand and say, "Because you're everything to me." Those moments etched themselves deep in my heart. I realized love isn't just giving flowers, watching movies, or eating together. It's becoming someone's strength, not their weakness, soothing their wounds, living their pain as your own. But deep down, I knew I was breaking. Still, I never let him see me weak. That morning was different from others. The sun cast a weary light on the earth. Oliver's condition was worse than ever, and the doctor said, "Only a miracle can save him now." Those words echoed in my heart. I remembered an evening outside the hospital when a stranger woman sat beside me on a bench and said, "Have you ever been to the temple? The first prayer offered there is never denied." I'd looked at her silently then, but now her words sink deep into my heart. That night I took a decision. I opened my wardrobe, pulled out my remaining savings, and opened a small box with a few precious memories. The ring I wore at our wedding, earrings my mother gave me, a small chain. I wrapped them in cloth and sold them the next day. With that money, I arranged a trip to the temple, got a visa, bought tickets for the man for whom I'd already sacrificed my entire world. "Charlotte, where are we going?" Oliver asked in a tired voice. "To God's house, where all prayers are heard," I said with a smile. A faint spark lit up his eyes. The journey wasn't easy. His weakness, the dosage of medicines, arranging a wheelchair, every detail weighed on my mind. But as we neared the temple, my heart pounded. This was where I'd make my final, greatest prayer, a plea for Oliver's life. When I first saw the temple's spire, I was stunned. My feet froze, tears filled my eyes, and my heart drowned in an otherworldly feeling. I held Oliver's wheelchair. His frail face looked at the deity's statue, his eyes reflecting hope, regret, and gratitude. We lived that moment fully. Then he looked at me and said softly, "Charlotte, if I ever hurt you, please forgive me." I held his hand and said, "It's all in God's hands now. Just pray with faith." We sat before the sanctum and prayed long. "Oh God, you know everything. I've offered my dreams, my jewelry, my home, my comforts, everything to your will. Just grant my husband health. I need nothing more than his life." My tears flowed endlessly, my hands tired, but my heart's cry didn't stop. That night, we sat in a corner of the temple courtyard. A divine energy filled the air. People sang hymns, bells rang, devotees were immersed in devotion. We sat silently, heads bowed before God. Suddenly, I looked at him. His breath seemed steadier. He sat a bit straighter, a faint glow on his face. "Charlotte, my chest feels lighter. I feel a strange peace," he said. I looked at him in wonder and thanked God from my heart. Perhaps this was the moment I'd sacrificed everything for. I offered special gratitude, my forehead touching the ground, my lips chanting, "Oh God, you heard me. You didn't leave me alone." That night, steeped in the temple's sanctity, that prostration, that prayer became the most precious moment of my life. Sometimes, a heartfelt plea pierces the heavens and reaches God's feet. And perhaps mine did too. That night was filled with extraordinary peace. Resting in God's court felt like a form of penance. The echo of chants, the sweet sound of conches, and the atmosphere filled with devotees' faith gave my heart an unspoken solace. I was exhausted from the day's relentless pace, my body drained, yet my heart found an indescribable peace because my husband was finally feeling better. I massaged his feet, and he slipped into a deep, serene sleep. I bowed my head in gratitude to God and, wrapping myself in a blanket, lay down in a corner of the temple courtyard. In the final hours of the night, my eyes closed, and a dream came to me. In it, I stood before God, surrounded by radiant light. I was praying, tears streaming down my face, when a piercing voice echoed in my ears. "I want to divorce you." It wasn't a stranger's voice. It was my husband's. I jolted awake, my breath rapid, sweat beating on my forehead, my heart racing uncontrollably. Opening my eyes, I saw my husband still sleeping peacefully, a faint smile on his face, as if he'd just had a beautiful dream. But fear gripped my heart. What was this fear? Why did such a voice echo in God's sacred place? Was it a sign of an impending storm, or merely my imagination? I wondered if it was my hidden fear, that if he fully recovered, he might leave me. Shame washed over me for even thinking it. No, he wouldn't do that. He feels guilty seeing my devotion. The rest of the night passed with my eyes wide open. I tried to sleep, but my mind was restless. My only prayer was, Lord, if this dream foretells the future, grant me strength now. If it's just my illusion, give my heart peace. The dream had ended, but its echo lingered. When the first rays of dawn touched the temple walls, their light sparked a faint hope in my heart. The terror of the dream still haunted me, but my husband's refreshed face softened it for a moment. That day, he sat up on his own for the first time, asked for water, and said softly, Charlotte, I'm truly feeling better. I closed my eyes, whispering thanks. Perhaps my prayers were being answered. Perhaps my sacrifices, sleepless nights, and heartfelt devotion were bearing fruit. We spent the day in worship, tears flowing as my prayers and heart's cries continued. Each time I raised my hands to God, my plea was the same. Lord, fully heal my husband. Grant him life. His breathing was steady now, his face regaining color, and his hands felt stronger. When we returned to our room, he said gently, Charlotte, this is all because of your patience and true prayers. I never thought I'd breathe again at this point. I held his hand, tears in my eyes, and said, No, it's God's grace. I was merely a vessel. That night, I offered a special prayer of gratitude, my eyes wet, my heart bowed at God's feet. Thank you, Lord. You heard me. You answered. You saved a relationship. In God's presence, those days and nights felt like a divine dream, as if a sacred light had descended into our hearts. My husband's lips still showed weakness, but his face glowed. We decided to get him tested again and returned home after the pilgrimage, carrying peace, hope, and a new light in our hearts. But I didn't know a shadow awaited beyond this light. The journey home was cloaked in an eerie silence. We went straight to the hospital from the airport. The doctor examined my husband, took blood samples, and scheduled a follow-up for the results. Those days felt like centuries, each hour a test, each moment torment. My husband was now walking on his own, his face fresher, his words sweeter, and a spark of new life in his eyes. Finally, the day arrived. Standing outside the hospital lab, our breaths held, hearts pounding, hands clasped tightly. The doctor held the reports, studied them silently, then called us in. I gripped my husband's hand. The doctor looked up, smiled, and said, Congratulations, there's no trace of cancer left. Those words hit me like a burst of light. I froze, as if time had stopped. My husband looked at me, his eyes moist. Is it true? I asked, my voice trembling. Handing us the reports, the doctor said, It's nothing short of a miracle. Perhaps it's the power of prayer, God's grace. Your husband is completely healthy. I bowed in gratitude, tears streaming, not of sorrow, but of joy, relief, and divine grace. My husband squeezed my hand and said softly, Charlotte, I can never forget what you've done for me. You gave me a new life. Smiling, I replied, No, your life was everything to me. I just took it back. That moment was the happiest of our lives. The darkness was behind us, and we were stepping into the light. But I didn't know some stories take a new turn before they end. Life seemed to be falling into place. My husband was healthy, and we returned home. I wanted us to start anew, filled with peace, gratitude, and love. I made breakfast every morning, shared tea with him in the evenings, and slept by his side at night, my heart full of thanks. Then one day, he was unusually quiet, no spark in his eyes, no smile on his lips. I thought he was tired. But that night, when he entered the room, his face carried a strange resolve. Charlotte, I need to talk to you, he said. I smiled. Yes, tell me. Without meeting my eyes, he said, I want to divorce you. The glass of water slipped from my hand. My mind went blank. The same words, the same tone. He repeated, I want to divorce you, Charlotte. Our relationship is over. My body froze. My heart felt stabbed. What did you say? My voice quivered. "I'm divorcing you," he said. "Why?" My voice turned into a scream. "I gave everything for you. My sleep, my wealth, my pride, my dreams. I pulled you back from death's door, and you're divorcing me?" He stayed silent. "Is there someone else? Am I a burden now? Do my sacrifices mean nothing?" I kept asking, but he only said, "You'll understand in time," and left the room as if I'd never been part of his life. I collapsed, my screams echoing off the walls. My heart was shattered. The man I erased myself for ended me in a single sentence. It was a betrayal with no explanation, no trace. I knew my life would never be the same. And I thought, is there a punishment greater than death in love? Yes, there is. And I've endured it. The divorce was finalized soon after. The days that followed were like a lifeless body breathing, without the will to live. I returned to the orphanage where this long, painful journey began. Each day left a new scar on my heart. I stopped talking, laughing, or crying. My tears had dried up, my soul cloaked in silence. My heart refused to trust any bond. Then one day, the orphanage manager called me to his office. "Charlotte, you've suffered greatly. We want to give you a new life. There's a proposal if you're willing." I listened quietly. He's 45, a widower with 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. He's kind, respected, and wise. He's heard of your struggles and sacrifices and wishes to marry you. I looked at the manager and asked softly, "Does he know I'm divorced?" He replied, "Yes, he knows everything and sees your past not as a weakness, but as your dignity." My heart swirled with fear, doubt, and distrust, but then a thought struck. Do I want to drown in tears forever, or can I embrace a new dawn? I quietly agreed. A simple wedding ceremony followed, witnessed by a few, laying the foundation for a new bond. My new husband, Oliver, was a gentle, dignified man with kindness in his nature and respect in his eyes. In the weeks after our marriage, time slowly began to heal my wounds. The new life, home, and faces felt different, but there was a deep peace in this change. Oliver proved to be a compassionate, understanding man, never harsh, his presence making me feel safe. He never asked about my past or probed my wounds. His only goal was for me to find myself and live anew. His 3 children, strangers at first, gradually became part of my life. The youngest, Amelia, would climb into my lap each night and say, "Mom, your lap is so warm. I fall asleep here." The feeling of incompleteness within me, born from never becoming a mother, was now beginning to feel fulfilled. I would wake up in the morning, prepare breakfast for the children, send them off to school, manage the household, and then carve out time for myself. One day, I looked at myself in the mirror and paused for a moment. It was still me, Charlotte, but slightly transformed, more composed, more radiant. I started buying new clothes for myself again, began applying light makeup, styling my hair, and meeting my own gaze in the mirror. Oliver would often return from work in the evening and say, "Charlotte, your face looks calmer and more beautiful than before." I would smile and reply, "This piece is a gift of your patience." A new woman was being born within me, one who wanted to live not just for others but for herself too. She no longer wanted to dwell in regret, but in gratitude. Life was now showing me new colors, and I was beginning to embrace them. The bitterness of the past still lingered in some corner of my heart, but it no longer broke me. For the first time, I was smiling for myself, and that smile marked the beginning of my new life. But fate had not yet finished its game. One morning, as I stood in the kitchen preparing lunchboxes for the children, the phone rang. The screen displayed a familiar number, Mildred, my first husband's sister. My heart skipped a beat. I picked up the phone slowly and said, "Hello, Mildred, is everything all right?" There was silence on the other end, then a choked voice spoke. "Charlotte, he's no longer in this world." My voice trembled as I asked, "Who?" She replied, "My brother. He died on the spot in a road accident." The phone slipped from my hand. My entire body went numb. I collapsed onto a chair, my heart racing uncontrollably, tears welling in my eyes, my mind clouded, and those words echoing in my ears. He's no longer here. The man I had once saved from the jaws of death was gone in an instant. The one for whom I endured years of pain was now buried beneath the earth. A sob escaped my chest, and my breath caught in my throat. Oliver rushed to me, asking, "Charlotte, what happened?" With great difficulty, I managed to say, "My first husband, he's no longer in this world." He stood silently for a moment, then placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "May God grant his soul peace. If you want to go, I'll take you." I closed my eyes and nodded. An overwhelming feeling shattered me from within. A question, an incompleteness. Why did he leave me? That question would now remain in my heart forever, for the one who could answer it was no longer in this world. The next day, at his funeral, Mildred saw me and immediately embraced me, saying, "Charlotte, he remembered you until his final moments." The ground slipped from beneath my feet. I sat quietly beside his body, tears streaming down my face, my lips murmuring, "I only understood your silence when you were alive. What's the point now?" The moments after the funeral may have been ordinary for others, but for me, they were a revelation of an entire lifetime. I sat by his side, my tears now dry, but my heart filled with an indescribable emptiness. Mildred approached me, her eyes red. In her hand was an old envelope with my first husband's name faintly written on it. She said, "He gave this to me a few days ago and told me to give it to you if anything happened to him." My heart seemed to stop. With trembling hands, I took the envelope and pressed it to my chest, as if his breath were trapped within that piece of paper. When everyone had left and the cremation ground was cloaked in silence, I quietly opened the envelope. The letter began, "Charlotte, when you read this, I will no longer be in this world. You may have thought I betrayed you, that I was unfaithful. But the truth was something else, a truth I didn't want to share because I couldn't bear to break your heart." My hands shook, my heart forgetting to beat with each word. "Charlotte, during our trip, the night you had that dream about hearing the word divorce, I too had a dream. I saw that only a few months of my life remained. My death was certain. The doctor said I was fine, but my heart knew this health was only temporary. I knew you loved me so much that after my death, you would spend your entire life mourning me.
I didn't want that.
I wanted you to move forward, to be happy, to become a mother, to live a complete life. So, I gave you a divorce so your life wouldn't be trapped behind a closed door. Charlotte, you were the greatest prayer of my life, and by setting you free, I surrendered myself to God. Everything ended, but the silence within me screamed. I pressed the letter to my chest and sobbed loudly. Everything was clear now. That silence, the decision to divorce, that strange distance, it was all a form of love. A love that sacrifices itself to give life to another. I touched his ashes and said, "Forgive me. I doubted you, without understanding you. You left, but you gave me a path to live." Now, all that remained in me was gratitude for a love proven not by words, but by sacrifice. After reading the letter, my nights were filled with sleepless dreams. His words, written before his death, echoed in my mind. My heart swung between two extremes, the unparalleled love he showed and the unbearable pain of his departure. I went to Mildred again. She was still grieving, but something in my expression told her I needed answers. Softly, I asked, "Mildred, did you know anything about his dream?" She hesitated, then nodded quietly. "Yes, he told me but forbade me from telling you. He didn't want to see you in pain, Charlotte." My voice was soft but firm. "What did he see in that dream?" Mildred took a deep breath, tears filling her eyes. "That night, when you both slept in the shadow of God, he woke up startled, drenched in sweat, his breathing heavy. When I asked, he said he saw himself wrapped in a white cloth, lying among many people. There was peace all around, and you were standing far away, crying. He heard a voice say, 'Your time is near. Make your final prayer.' My body shivered. He had said, 'I want to pray for Charlotte, that she be free from my life, move forward, and live happily with someone else. He didn't want his death to bind you forever. I broke down, sobbing. It was all clear now, that dream, the divorce, the silence, the distance. It all connected to that one moment when he made his final prayer in the presence of God. Even in his final moments, he prayed only for my well-being. He proved his love not with words, but with sacrifice. I returned home. There were no complaints left in my heart, only his memory, a profound, serene, and deeply loving memory. I organized a prayer service for him, bowed in reverence, and raised my hands to God. O God, reward him for the love he showed me. Grant him the highest place in heaven and give me the patience he displayed. Sometimes, in life, you pass through moments where everything seems to shatter. But when you look back, those scattered pieces form a beautiful picture, a picture woven from love, sacrifice, and purity. Now, I understood everything. The wound my husband gave me by divorcing me was, in truth, his final sacrifice. A sacrifice only a true lover could make. If he hadn't divorced me, clinging to his illness or unfulfilled dreams, I might have been his widow today, spending my life mourning him. I would never have thought of another, never dreamed of becoming a mother, never started a new life. But he understood. If I became his widow, I would weep for his death and never learn to live. He knew my heart would accept nothing without him, so he cloaked his love in the guise of betrayal to free me from fear. I used to think he deceived me, but now I know it wasn't deception. It was the pinnacle of love. He didn't want me to remain bound to his name in his final breaths. He wanted me to live for myself, to see a new dawn, to hear the laughter of children, to feel the touch of true love, and to have everything he couldn't give me. A mother's joy, a complete family, a life filled with love. His silence, his decision, his separation, it was all for my good, for my happiness. I began visiting his resting place again, carrying his letter, pressing it to my chest, and repeating one thing: the sacrifice you made. I will remember him for the rest of my life. He set me free so I wouldn't remain imprisoned. He gave me a new world, and I learned to live in it. The ultimate sacrifice is when someone lets go of their love just so the other can be happy. My husband, Oliver, had made that sacrifice. Now, I was living in the freedom he gave me, carrying his love in my heart while looking toward life's new horizons. A new door was about to open. When the morning light peeked through the bedroom window, I felt a tiny shoe in my hands, soft, warm, and perfect. It was my daughter, Amelia, the most beautiful gift of my life, the most precious reward. I kissed her forehead, closed my eyes, and thanked God. Oh, God, you gave me a joy I never even dreamed of. Oliver's eyes were filled with tears of happiness. The children were insisting on bringing toys for their little sister, Mildred. The house was brimming with joy, and my heart was filled with contentment. I set aside all the pain of my past and thought, this was the prayer I had desperately made in the presence of God. Today, God had granted its fulfillment. The chapter of my life filled with pain, sacrifice, and silence had now turned into a new page, one filled with love, peace, and gratitude. I held Amelia in my arms and whispered in her ear, "You are not just mine. You are the result of the prayers of the man who set me free so I could have you." Yes, sacrifice is the highest form of love. It may seem painful on the surface, but it comes from the depths of the heart, made only so the beloved can find happiness, even if it costs one's own existence. This was my final prayer, a story that, though complete, will live forever in my heart. So, friends, that was today's story. What did you think of it? Please share your thoughts in the comment box. If you liked the story, give the video a like, subscribe channel, and click the bell icon, setting it to all so you'll get notifications for new videos right away. Thank you.